Welcome to the Architect of Resilience podcast, where we explore the secrets of overcoming life's challenges and unlocking unstoppable strength through deep personal conversations and expert insights.
How did this relationship form with, you getting involved with a lot of these CrossFit athletes and surgeries that relates, and where did that come about? How did you become the guy?
It started kind of organically. I started CrossFit in 2007. My wife competed at the games back in 2008, 2009. And then at one of the regionals in Canton at Ebook, one of my friends dislocated his shoulder on a snatch. And, my wife was saying there was nobody there to put it back in, and he went to the hospital. And so I reached out to the CrossFit Games and said, would you guys, I cover a lot of sports on the sidelines, and I love CrossFit, and would you guys like to have an orthopedic surgeon on the sidelines? And they said, yeah, that'd be great. And that was the way it came about. And then with the strongmen, we have the CrossFit Games medical team, and there are people at Rogue, with the CrossFit athletes and with the strongmen. And so a lot of the medical team knows me, and they called me up and said, would you, treat them and take care of them? And I said, yeah, sure. We'll send him up. And he was happy to come up, and we sort of took care of it and got it done.
Awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. So did your wife compete against Katie then? Because isn't that around the time she won?
It was. Rhonda was on the team.
Okay.
She was on the CrossFit New England team. She was, this was a team of 4, I believe, and Ben Bergeron was on the team, and Harry Pally was on the team. Harry was he's at HWPO now, and was at CrossFit New England for a while. And so they were the team. And, at the time she was, I think, 38 or 9 or 40, on the team. And, so you can see where the team has gone since 2008, right?
That's some iconic names.
Not a lot of 40-year-olds on the, if you look at the team people nowadays, some of the guys are pretty impressive. And they became younger. The younger people started, beating this was back. I actually competed in the 2009 sectionals at Albany, New York. You could just sign up and be in the sectionals. So I made it to the sectionals and, did not place high. James Hobart was out there, and Rob Orlando was out there, and Dave Lipson was there, and Heather Bergeron, and some of the old timers.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's I've got to know Dave through the years. Good guy. I haven't met Ben. Actually, I might have been on Ben's podcast at one point in time, but that's pretty it. I'm not a CrossFitter myself, strength athlete, but it all intersects, right? So just just
different movements, different weights, different number of reps, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
So I didn't do an intro. Because I really like to have my guests do a bit of an intro, because it's really easy to talk about your resume. Distinguished orthopedic surgeon from New England, serves as assistant clinical professor at Tufts University School of Medicine, extensive experience in orthopedic surgery, specializing in sports injury, joint reconstruction. Author of Where Does It Hurt, which is available on Rogue. Really cool. I have not had a chance to work through that yet. But what I find is, who are you outside of the resume? Like, what are your values that drive you? And then how does that intersect with your place in the world and what you're trying to accomplish?
Wow. Who am I? Like, first thing I thought of was father, 3 kids, try to be a good role model for them. I had strong family ties and connections with my parents. They're both surgeons, and they sort of had a big influence on me. I got three older brothers, a little sister. But I think this sort of coming to the games, you saw, was just sort of a natural progression. Like I never thought like I want to be the CrossFit Games medical doctor or anything. I just was like, I like CrossFit. I enjoy it. I think, I try to be a good surgeon, and being a good surgeon is, being able to listen to somebody and hear what they have to say and meet them where they are, maintaining humility and humbleness and trying to help people, but not trying to think I can cure everything. And some people come and want surgery and I'll talk them out of surgery. Some people, want surgery, need surgery. You pull the trigger when you need to pull the trigger. I think just being able to sort of step back and say, do the right thing for the right reasons, and don't try to be flashy. And that's sort of I would say that's my synopsis.
That's really refreshing. I really enjoyed hearing that from you. The meeting people where they are and where they need to be, I think, is incredibly important versus being the authority figure or the director of what they should be doing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with your expertise, you're the one to provide them sound advice. But hearing you articulate that is really, really interesting. How did you kind of arrive at that philosophy that carries with you as an orthopedist?
Yeah, I think it's treating people the way you'd treat a family member, the way you would treat your brother, your sister, your mother, your father. Everybody always says, like, what if this was your child? Like, what would you do? That's sort of a great question for a surgeon. Like, would you say that your son should have surgery? Like, knowing all the, being able to comprehend the 8 months of recovery, and is it worth that 8 months? Yeah, there are certain conditions like an Achilles tear. Absolutely, it's worth the 8 months of recovery. Like, does a mild tendonitis or a mild bursitis need, 6 months recovery from a surgery? Maybe not. Try other stuff. Let's try conservative management. Being able to put yourself in the patient's position and realize what the ramifications of surgery are. It's no joke. It's not to be taken lightly. Knowing that you are going to, condemn somebody to a 4 to 6 month rehab in some conditions, or an 8 month rehab in some conditions. That being able to sort of comprehend the power you are able to, have over somebody, and you need to have over somebody for a surgery recovery. Like you need quiet time, you need healing time. There's time where you can't stress those tissues. If you do, and we see it a lot, I see it a lot, where people are, they think they're going to recover faster, because they have an excellent surgeon. No, I'm kidding. Your body still needs to do the job. The stuff I do is to put the tissue where it belongs, but your body still needs to heal and still needs to recover and still needs to get strong once it's recovered. So that's why it takes so long.
That's what I wonder sometimes with some of the surgeries that I see people get is, I'm like, that is, a light kind of chronic injury. What would have you taking 6 months easier done the same thing, and the surgery basically forced you to take a rest period and then practically manage your recovery process through physical therapy? And, right. Could you have achieved those results just walking that process alone? And certainly not the case all the time, but at times it seems like there's that. And so do you, when you are trying to, maybe talk somebody about those alternatives, guide or get involved with what they need to do as far as, connecting them with people to manage that process? I'm assuming that's part of, the clinic that you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Somebody will come in and they'll have 3 to 4 weeks of shoulder pain. They think they need a surgery and they're ready, they're like, here we go, let's do it, fist bump. And I'm like, well, let's just talk about it. And, have you tried, not push pressing, every day for the past, 3 weeks. You were, trying to get your push press higher or your bench press higher. Like, let's back down off the bench press a little bit and see if your biceps quiets down. Like, if it's inflamed from tendonitis, let's just try 4 weeks of modifying and doing, not doing things that hurt and doing other stuff, but just not doing the things that are going to hurt it. And then they're like, yeah, no, I tried that. And they'll say, okay, let me walk you through what recovery looks like. And I'll have a sheet and it'll say, when can I drive? When can I work? When can I, sleep in a normal position? When can I start lifting weights again? And it, goes 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and they're like, oh, that's a major wake up call. So I usually let that sheet do the talking. And if people are like, oh, wow, that's a lot. And I'm like, you're damn right. It's a lot. So that usually sort of, and I can tell when people walk in, I can tell who needs the cert, and not who needs it, but who's tried, who's said, it's been a year. I've gone to therapy. I've done all this other stuff and it's just not working. And I can't sleep and I can't work and I need to lift at work, or I need to be able to, lift this way or that way, and or working out. Like, I miss doing pull-ups, I miss doing push-ups, like it hurts, I can't sleep on my side. Like, that's when somebody's tried everything. That's a different story.
So a lot of that, is definitely, thinking of like the type A personality, the person that's drawn to a CrossFit, your wife, you, me, Trey is our like avatar examples, right? Mm-hmm. What about the other side? So when we're talking about, hey, your surgery is just, mechanically putting the tissue in the right place, maybe attaching that, but the body is the one that actually does the healing. And then you need to send the signals, though, for the healing. And there's a whole subset of population where maybe that's what they need to do, is actually the activity, the signaling, where they're not getting that. And, the answer is, I just got to rest more, but they're not developing resilience within the tissue. Do you encounter that? And how do you handle that?
Yeah, no, it's, I would say most of what I see is not an injury, but overtraining and overdoing. And, and again, it's people just, if you're just going to do a bench press, for 7 days a week and you're not going to work on other stuff, you got to work your back muscles, you got to work your rotator cuff, you got to work your, it's not all, pec and biceps, you got to do other stuff. And yeah, I've seen, and sometimes it's bad form and sometimes it's weakness in other areas, but I've seen where the tendons get inflamed from micro tears, probably tendinopathy, where those tissues, I think, in my opinion, those tissues develop inflamed micro tears that need to rest, need to heal, need to modify, and do other stuff, strengthen other areas. And so those people, yeah, you got to tell them, keep training, keep doing other stuff, but let's try not doing bench press 7 days a week. Like, let's try other stuff. And that usually does the trick for 90% of what I see. My surgical practice is 10% of everybody I see. 90% are doing non-operative measures and PT and modifying and recovering, and they get better. Like, those are the people that get better, like the people that don't, so you don't have to do surgery just for every ache and pain.
Yeah. And, along that lines, we did, not purposefully, but a little bit of collaboration as a result revolves around Trey, where you were managing that end of it. And I was, helping Trey from what do we look at to help from a peptide type space, supplementation space, so that we can ensure that we've got good nutrition supplied to the tissues, that we've got the blood flow, that we've got the organization of, the activity via upregulating receptors, so on, as it relates to those. Did Trey share any of like what we were doing and as it relates to that with you? And what did you see as an output, as it relates to recovery process for those type of surgeries typically?
Yeah, no, he didn't give me the paths, the protocols, but I did. I was involved with his rehab and the strengthening and the initial 6 weeks of quiet time followed by the strengthening. But I did not hear about the other stuff. No.
Okay. I'm glad to share that with you if you
Yeah,
want to
sure.
take a look at it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
People are asking me about peptides, and I, honestly, it's a field that I need to know more about and learn more about. So, because a lot of people are asking about it, and anytime somebody comes in and asks me about stuff, I want to be well read on it and learn about it.
well, no need to dive into it here because we're interviewing you, but I will. I'll send you a pretty detailed list of research and application and case
Cool.
case studies
Oh,
as it
great.
relates to that. So it's pretty fascinating. Unfortunately, it's just a quick before we get off of it for listeners because I really want to make sure messaging is on point. These are not fix-alls for things. You don't just go, this hurts, I stuff some stuff in there and it fixes it.
Yeah.
Like that is not, you've got to understand the root issues and correct either those movement patterns, get the time. You got to do all it's doing is, it's a way of amplifying the process. If you have everything else, it is not a fix. Right. So, I know Trey was quite diligent about and following the rehab process, and we did a few things as it relates to adding into that with some shockwave therapy and some topicals and things like that to again enhance the penetration utilization of the things that we were doing. But let's talk about your book. Where does it hurt? Like I said, I haven't had the chance to read through it, but I'm guessing that it's diving into some pain management topics. Is that correct? Let's dive into the world of optimizing your overall health. With pushing my physical limits, I encountered significant reductions in my health, and I reached out to Merrick Health as the premier telehealth service. I loved their personalized health coaching from the comfort of my home. They empower you with the choice of self-service diagnostic labs, or what I chose, the guided optimization with expert interpretations of blood work, health coaching, and with medications delivered to my door. Merrick Health is your partner in optimizing your health. Listeners can seize a fantastic 10% discount off their first blood work with code RESILIENCE at merrickhealth.com. That's code RESILIENCE for 10% off.
Yeah, I would say it's for the most of the stuff that I do a lot of shoulders, knees, hips, and it's based on this website that I had called 321 Go MD, and every time I would fly, I would write an article for this website, and then I translated it into my book. But basically, it's things that I see, things that I describe in my office every day that I see, and it's a very visual book, and it's an ebook, so it's got links to pictures, surgical pictures, and surgical repairs, and it has interviews from patients who have had a shoulder pain and what it turned out to be. So the whole basis of the book is, where does it hurt? Like, I could write a chapter on shoulder pain, and if somebody has shoulder pain, they're not going to read a whole chapter on this, on shoulder pain. So it's, where does it hurt? Like, it hurts here. Go to that chapter on biceps tendonitis. It hurts over here. Go to that chapter on rotator cuff and bursitis. So it's basically like translating for people. If you have pain in this area, this could be what you have, and this could be, and it just is giving people a sort of an idea of what the possibilities are. I can't say it's diagnosing them, obviously, and then say somebody does have a diagnosis of a rotator cuff tear. There are links where people always want to know, like, what's the surgery really like to a patient? Like, how bad is it at 3 months? What's your recovery like at 6 weeks? What are you doing now at 6 months? And so there's videos of patients saying, 3 months, I'm able to, get my arm overhead. The pain is gone. I'm starting to, do band strengthening and W's and T's and Y's. And so it's a very interactive sort of idea and book. that is, nothing like I've seen in the literature. And it's definitely for everyday people who have aches and pains in certain areas and either haven't gone to the doctor or they should go to the doctor, or it's sort of treating, telling people like, you need a diagnosis, like go see a doctor, get a diagnosis, because it might not be as bad as what you think. Like you might not have arthritis. You might not be destined to stopping exercise. Like there could be something that's easily treatable, or you need to treat it a certain way. I would say it's hope in a book.
Awesome. I love that. Hope in a book. That's that's a big, powerful thing. So it sounds like you spent quite some time, because it wasn't just like that one time. It's been a large project over a series of years.
There's been a lot with media launch, the company's media launch. Jay Vera, Karen Thompson, Lauren Fulkerson, they helped organize it. They helped sort of put it all together on the computer and put the links in and get the pictures and yeah. So I'll use it when I talk to a patient. I'll bring up pictures of. You say you had a quad tear. I'll show what a quad tear looks like, and what does a repair look like, and what does the incision look like, and so people. It's just giving people more visual information and sort of data as well.
Nice. So, in your personal life and your practice, how would you define strength?
Strength. In my personal life, it's my wife. She's very strong. No, she there's mental strength and there's physical strength.
Yep.
Right. Just thinking off the top of my head here. For strength, being able to, physical strength, being able to move an object a certain distance in a certain amount of time. That whole CrossFit notion of force times distance over time, that I would say is sort of a strength maneuver. Maybe not time, because strength could be however long you want it to be. But then in my practice, strength is, getting back to doing what you want to do, getting back to build your muscles and get your tendons healed. A lot of what we see is tendon issues, right? Usually muscles tear and they feel better. Like we don't operate on muscle tears, right? We don't operate on hamstring pulls or quad pulls. Those get better usually. Like we operate mostly on tendon attachments to bone. When that goes wrong with the rotator cuff, if the tendon pulls away, there's no getting it back. Like it's just, It keeps pulling away. Like nothing you're going to do or I'm going to do is going to get that tendon to go and reattach itself. So a lot of orthopedics is tendon repair and tendon reattachment, which is part of strength. Like if you exceed the strength of the tendon bone interface, that's when you get rips. Like you have to, as a patient or as an athlete, or if you're doing something explosive and something heavy, sometimes the tendons give, and you're just literally on a cellular basis exceeding the forces of those cell connections to the bone. Like the tendons are ripping from the bone. Like that's just a unfortunate, sometimes explosiveness. And
I've done it.
Yep. Would you do biceps or?
I've done a bicep. Actually, it's a pretty interesting story. I could show you the video because I understand you like videos of it happening. Definitely make you a little queasy. But I detached both the sternal and clavicular head of the pec from the humerus, and I knew it had happened. Like I was.
Was it a bench or a dip?
I was doing an iron cross, which was not a brilliant thing to do after a bench session, after body weight flies on the rings at 250 pounds. So I did the iron cross, and then my tendon ripped off. And so
I would say it's usually bench or dips for what I see. Bench is the number one reason. And then iron cross, don't see a lot of those. Yeah.
Yeah, well, typically not 250-pound people doing that either in a fatigue state. Yeah. But
so you think the muscle was just fatigued, and then the stress went from the muscle to the tendon interface, the bone tendon interface, where the muscle wasn't able to support you anymore.
Yep.
Grip.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Or, the muscles of other supporting tissue that were helping me hold that position were fatigued.
Yeah.
But, it was just beyond, like you said, it was beyond the capability of that interface holding.
Mm-hmm.
But what was it? So I went to the emergency room and they x-rayed it. And I said, well, you don't need to do an x-ray. I tore the tendon off the bone. And they're like, oh, no, we're just going to x-ray and make sure it's okay. And then they gave me a sling and said it's pulled and to go home.
Sometimes you pull a piece. Sometimes your tendon's not the issue. Is the bone is sometimes you pull a piece of bone.
So they said I strained my shoulder and gave me a sling and sent me home. So then the next day I went to an orthopedic surgeon. And so what's interesting is I had enough fascial remodeling, right, that the pec still stayed in place. It didn't retract.
Yeah.
And so the orthopedic told me that it was fine and wasn't going to do an MRI. So then I scheduled another orthopedic surgeon. Same thing. They had me raise my arm. They're like, it's intact. And then I went to the third one.
Wow.
And he told me that he would do it to give me, he would schedule an MRI just because of peace of mind, because clearly I didn't believe anybody because I was on my, fourth doctor visit.
Did you have the?
No.
Did it look like a defect?
It didn't. So that's the issue. So the fascial the fascia was so, holding the pec in place. So that it had ripped off, but there was no divot. And so I get the MRI and the surgeon looks at the MRI. He looks at me. He looks at the MRI. And he's like, you tore and I'm like, I know. That's what I've been telling everybody. And then they went and did the surgery. And he's like, oh, so you actually tore off two of them because the second one didn't show. I'm not sure if it was the sternal or clavicular, but they had only retracted 4 millimeters. So everything stayed in place just because of, so much like fascial remodeling that, from all the strength training through the years. So kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I'll send you the video. I don't like watching it myself. It was a long time ago, like over 15 years ago.
Oh boy. So, yeah, sure.
And then I came back and had the fourth highest all-time total 9 months post-surgery. So.
Did you really?
Yeah, did 1,000.
And 9 months, the fourth all-time total.
Yes.
Wow.
So, that was using some of my early, regenerative peptide protocols because I've been playing around with those for almost 20 years. Okay. And so, which you'll see in the things I send you. Like I've got one of the person that allowed me to share his case study, but he detached both quad tendons. So surgery to reattach both legs, bilateral quad rupture. In a wheelchair, had to learn to walk again.
Frankenstein and 2 braces. Yeah.
Yep. 12 weeks, he was deadlifting 700 pounds again and had he was in the 99.999% strength population, zero pain. And typically your, success is being able to walk 2 miles, I think at 9 months with, I think it's 50%, 60, combined, no pain, where stiffness is over 50% never returned to play. From a bilateral quad rupture.
Bilateral quad.
Yeah.
So you said he deadlifted 700?
Yes.
What was he deadlifting before the injury?
About the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're here and you have like a little blip, you're going to go back to, normally. And was he a young person, old person?
About 30.
30?
Yeah,
30?
28, 32 in there.
So he was. So those typical quads are typically 40 to 60 or 70. Like for people that tear their quad tendons, that's usually the age.
Yep.
So number one was, probably just the amount of force. But that's, that's a testament to how much he was lifting beforehand. So that's awesome. That's great.
Well, that's where resilience, strength of tissue comes into play, right? So I use the word resilience in a lot of ways. And so that's a great question for you. Like in your experience, and this isn't just the physical, but the mental and emotional sides of it. How does resilience play a role in a patient's recovery process?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's funny you say resilience. I don't know if you heard about Brooke Wells. She's the CrossFit athlete. She dislocated her elbow at the games, and I was there, relocated her elbow at the arena, and she literally was like, looked at me and said, "So can I go back in?" And so I was like, not tonight, and we'll talk more. Um, but her book is titled Resilience, and so it's all about the mentality of it. Really is a great book, from the sort of the inner thoughts of a professional athlete. And there was never a doubt that she was going to be disabled from this. Like, it was, I'm coming back. And that, like, it was just, and I would say resilience is 90% positivity,
Yeah.
like just positive thinking. Like, she never thought she was going to be disabled from this.
That's my experience in working with people in the recovery process is that confidence that you are going to return, not the doubt, the turning to somebody like, I am going to be there, and it's just a matter of figuring it out and putting the pieces in play. Like, if you have that, it seems like that is that is a differentiator by far in, particularly like when I look at, like I'm thinking my Facebook and, general people I went to high school and college with that aren't in the athletic perspective, and seeing them when they have like a surgery and this process and how devastating it is. And it's just like completely different world than the athletes that I work. I mean, it's like, it's just mind blowing the difference that it is. And it really is, it's, obviously physical shape, but it's the mindset that seems to be the differentiator.
Yeah, that is absolutely. When I saw Trey after his surgery in a boot, and doing bench press, I was like, yeah, he's coming. And it was like, it wasn't like, oh my God, I tore my Achilles, I don't know what's going to happen. It was like, watch me work. It was this. And I knew he was coming back. With that attitude, I knew he was coming back.
Yeah. I remember that was, so my surgery 15 years ago, that actually lit a fire under me. And so my best performances came after that, even though the surgeon told me I would never be able to bench press the same again. And, my strength career was kind of over. And, but for me, I was like, it was like a burning fire to like show that I could come back and perform. And it's just, it's a driver, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have an authority figure telling you no and telling you you'll never do this again. Guess what? You're going to do that again. And that, it's like anything, like in life, I've talked to people like, their high school teacher was like, you're never going to be a scientist. And guess what? They became a scientist. Like, like somebody telling you no is, talk about a motivating factor. Like that's much more than like, oh, you're good. You're a good student. You can do that. Like somebody coming out and saying, you'll never do this. Like that's what that's what your last rep in your head is on a Saturday night. Like, working out, like that's who you have in the back of your head screaming at you saying you're not going to do this, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's my mentality, at least. I did have a biology teacher who told me, why am I even thinking about medicine?
Oh, like, really?
Yeah. I was like, wow, that sucks.
So what do you do to help motivate your patients in this process?
I think it's a lot of visits. I'll see people a lot, and I say it's my cheerleader office. Like, I'm the cheerleader. If somebody comes in and I'm, all morose and, oh yeah, you tore your quad, this is terrible. And oh my, what do you, have you picked out a cane? Like, what color cane do you like? I call it my cheerleading day. Like those first, say from a surgery, like a rotator cuff or a labral tear for a dislocation, I am encouraging. I have to be positive, and I have to show them they're not going to hurt themselves by, picking up a glass of water. Or, people are afraid after surgery. They're nervous. They're worried. Like, they're worried, are they going to rip it again? Are they going to, so I have to tell them certain things are okay certain things are not okay, and we have to, and I'm going to start releasing these certain things that aren't okay as we progress. But, to have them come back at 6 weeks, tell them, get rid of the sling. You can now, lift up a coffee cup, a dinner plate. At 3 months, you can now start to hang from a bar with a band, or start to do pull-ups with a band, or start to, it's sort of like giving them hope with goals. And we know, and typically we know at what month the body heals, and how many weeks it takes for soft tissue and bone and tendon to heal together. So we're basing our progression on scientific studies on humans and rats and mice, and knowing what somebody can do. And every so often there are people who go beyond that, and you're like, wow, they're really progressing fast and quickly, and this is great. But I still have to be the guardian and tell them to pump the brakes, and let's not go crazy with this. And then once the soft tissues are good, and once the mobility is good, then, I say, then it's time to release hell. That's when you then can ramp up and start getting strong on a gradual process.
Nice. So besides the research, have you had an injury yourself in your career that helped provide some additional insights into your professional practice?
Yeah, they say orthopedics is either a carpenter, somebody who likes to put stuff back together, a jock who plays sports and likes sports medicine, or somebody who got hurt a lot. They said like an invalid, like somebody who had like a lot of injuries. And so I would put myself in the jock/invalid category. I probably had a lot of stuff, shoulders and knees, and and it helps because I'm able to see labral tear in my shoulder, PCL tear in my knee, is able to see, what being out of a sport is, and what being, on the sidelines are like. And, for the doctor, it's always the worst visit when somebody comes in with, say, a stress fracture, and they're ready to play in the state championships, and, they might do more damage, and, or say it's a real fracture, and, that right now things don't need surgery, but if you push through that, you might need a surgery. So that's always the toughest visit for me, because I know what it means to that person. Like I know, I've been there. I've been angry at the doctor, and I look at him in the eye, and I said, you can be as angry as you want at me, and I know how much this hurts, and I'm so sorry, but it's really not the right thing to do. And those are the worst visits. If they're a high school kid and they're trying to play in the States, or something, something where, they broke their tibia, or, something like that. And it's just, some of them are obvious diagnoses, like you break your tibia, you're not playing in the States, but like some are, you have an ACL tear or a significant partial ACL tear. And, that if they go out and they're going to do more damage, that's not going to help them in the future. And that's what we do as sports medicine. Even in the CrossFit Games, there are conditions where I have to hold somebody back from going forward, because I know they're, with an ACL tear, they're going to do more damage. Like you're taking a simple ACL and you're converting it into a ACL, MCL, meniscus, knee dislocation. Like you just have to do the right thing. And that's sort of what I learned also in residency, is just, you got to do the right thing. And sometimes patients try to push it, and you just got to, be honest with them and say, this isn't a good idea. It's going to hurt you in the long run. I know you want to do it. I know you want to be in the game. I know you want to compete, but it's, sometimes you got to bite the bullet.
All right, guys, we talk a lot about mental resilience on this podcast, but let's talk about another type of resilience. That's movement resilience. We want to move well, recover better, and do it for life. And it starts with your feet. And you can start today with Naboso. Naboso is a sensory technology company founded by a functional podiatrist. And all their products feature a texture to stimulate, strengthen, and awaken your feet. I use their splay toe spacers and Neuroball to release my feet at the end of every day. They also have these textured recovery socks that feel like a mini massage when you walk around. If you're looking for an effective way to bulletproof your feet, head to naboso.com. That's NABOSO.com orthopedics.com and use code RESILIENCE for 20% off.
Yeah. Well, that's a good lead into your non-negotiables for maintaining your own physical and mental resilience.
Non-negotiables, like for me. So non-negotiables, I need sleep. So I would say sleep is my number one. And in residency, that was very tough. That was very tough. So sleep, exercise, I need to exercise. If I, for whatever reason, don't exercise for more than 5 days, 6 days, if I'm out of exercise, like I feel it. I can tell. I just feel like not good. What else? Sleep, exercise, diet. Every so often I'll, I would say those are really, sleep, exercise. And that's why I like CrossFit is it's not boring. And I like going to see what the workout is, because I know it's something different and something, it's not like I used to just sit on a bike and do a stationary bike and biceps curls. That was my exercise, because I had 40 minutes. I had to get it in quick, and I just sit there and go like this. And so, that's why I do really enjoy CrossFitting. It's because it's mixed up, it's variable. My attention span needs, just enough where I just got to get in, I got to get out. My schedule's busy enough that I can't go on a hour and a half or 2 hour bike or run or, I think those are for and mental health. I like a sauna. We just got a sauna in the house, a little tiny sauna. And that really helps. I find that like at the end of the day, I'll just right before bed, even it sort of, takes my heart rate down and gets me just relaxed. Getting rid of stress, not getting into stressful situations or getting out of stressful situations. That's important for me too. I think I think everybody has the same, but stress sucks, right? Stress is just not helpful. There's nothing about stress that is helpful for your body. Like maybe, some, getting ready for a competition or something, but the other stress that you're dealing with, whether it's something at work, something with the family, something with whatever, being able to navigate that.
Yeah, stress management definitely is a critical thing. What do you see the future of orthopedic looking like with as it relates to technology, regenerative medicine? Do you see it changing much?
Yes, I do. There is a thing called arthritis. And I look at the residents as we're doing hip and knee replacements and putting these metal structures onto a femur and onto a knee. And I look at them and I'll ask them, in what year in the future do you think people are going to look back at us and laugh for doing this?
There's already been a number of stuff with types of metals and issues creating inflammation and all sorts of stress within the body. That's for sure.
Metal on metal, metal on metal particles, metal on plastic particles. That was in the 70s, in the 80s and the 90s, really. But yeah, so the key is not to regenerate, but to prevent. How do you prevent that articular cartilage from breaking off the bone and forming arthritis? So, and that's a big, but it can be just a little wear, and you're losing that cushion. And how do you prevent that from breaking down in the first place? And right now we don't have a good answer for that. But we do know that people who have early arthritis, who are genetic in their 20s and 30s, they have this gene that breaks down. And that gene, if you can target that gene from not breaking down the articular cartilage protein, if you can preserve that articular cartilage protein, that is going to be mind-blowing and game-changing. And so being able to reverse that breakdown of the articular cartilage proteins and cross-links.
Interesting. Yeah.
And tendons too. Like, so say most of orthopedics is tendon tears. Like, how do you prevent tendon tears? And it's actually building up tendon strength, building up the hypertrophy and the cellularity of that tendon. And so you don't get into, senile tendons and old tendons and degenerative tendons. Like, how do you keep that tendon healthy? Is you actually strengthen it. So strength and weightlifting into your 70s and 80s, I think, is going to be important for a whole generation.
That is such a positive thing to see right now, is the media shift and the narrative changing around strength training for women and strength training as we age, and just how powerful of a life extension and quality of life hack it is, because it is, it is right. Like, we need sleep. We need food, we need sun, and we need to, have some load to develop resilience of the tissue, to make strong bones, to healthy tendons, to have muscles that operate correctly. And so it's so great seeing the information actually flowing to the mass population around this now, and not just the people that already know it, right?
Yeah. Or have seen it. Like, I've seen, I go into these CrossFit gyms and you see these 80-year-olds, 70-year-olds, and what they're doing compared to some other 70 and 80-year-olds. And it's like, why can't everybody do this? Why can't the world look like that 70 and 80-year-old that I'm looking at right now?
There's people that are 33 years younger that look worse off and older and in less health easily than those individuals, because I have the same experience. 60, 70, 80-year-olds that are just thriving, and you can run into somebody that's 45 or 50, and it's like, this makes no sense.
And it's funny too, like, you see these 70-year-olds and they're at the gym and they're smiling. Like, how many I've seen a ton of 70-year-olds who come and they're just, sad, depressed, and lonely. And like, you get a 70-year-old out to a gym, surround them with friends and people and that, that community, and it's just it's game changing for them.
Absolutely. Well, I want to encourage everybody to check out Where Does It Hurt? It's on Rogue. Is it anywhere else?
Roguefitness.com. Roguefitness.com. Yeah.
I will be getting that myself. It looks, I really enjoyed the discussions around that. Is there anywhere else that you'd like to send people to maybe follow you, or anything of interest?
I got a YouTube. I got a Sean Rockett MD YouTube, and it's got a lot of interviews and a lot of sort of interviews with patients, with athletes, talking about different conditions, informative, where their recovery is after surgeries and things like that. Yeah. And 321 Go MD is on Instagram, and same thing, a bunch of reels on that.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate the discussion today. Is there any last words that you'd like to drop for our audience?
No, just keep moving, keep doing stuff. Get out there.
That's right. Keep moving, keep doing stuff, keep thriving. Check out the Endless Evolution community via the links on my site, all my profiles as well. Appreciate it. You have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.